Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. It is, according to my clock, precisely noon Eastern Time. Thank you for joining us for this second segment in our Mindful Lawyer series. We are grateful once again to Paul Falvo for being here today to be speaking with us. And a couple of things before we get started. This is a lawyer wellness session as well as a continuing legal education session. So you are encouraged to have your cameras on and to interact and to ask questions and to participate actively in the session to your comfort level. If you have questions, you are encouraged to ask them. This session, like the others, is put on by the Law Society of Nunavut. We encourage you to look at our offerings that are available online. We offer continuing legal education with respect to lawyer wellness, cultural competency, as well as substantive legal topics. So without further ado, I will leave it to Paul to carry on. Thank you again for being here.
Hey, thanks, Rebecca. And is anybody brave enough to turn their cameras on? The idea is that this is meant to be less of a lecture and more of building community, and that's sort of the point because we're in this together. I'm calling it Mindful Counsel because it's aimed at lawyers, and we aren't the only people in the world with problems. Far from it, but I think there are issues that are unique to legal practice, and we can support each other, share perspectives that might be different from some other professions. A few housekeeping things. This is the second of the three-part series. So there's a different link for next week. After that, there could be more. If there's interest, I could, for example, maintain the time slot as just a shorter, simple sit. So we'll see if there's interest in doing that. There were some April sessions indicated on the website. I'm not sure if they're still there now, but that's not for sure. That was just a tentative idea we were talking about. So may or may not happen, might or might not be at that time. Thank you for being here and for turning cameras on. It's okay if you're eating to have, I know what it's like, and we're busy, so there's no shame if you don't, but if you can, it just makes it that much more of a community feel. And because the session is recorded, we'll turn the recording off later on, and then if people have questions, you can ask them without having them being memorialized. If that makes people might make some of us more comfortable with some of the questions. So last week we talked about what is mindfulness. And simplest definition of mindfulness that I know of is now, like right now. Being aware right now. And it's actually a bit of a lie because, by the time you say it, we're in the past. In fact, I read that the speed at which our brains process things, we are in one sense literally always a bit in the past. So that's a blessing and a curse, because I guess the curse is that sometimes we're just really uncomfortable in the now. Like I remember talking once to a runner who used to run in sort of somewhat isolated areas and wasn't really worried about safety, but was terrified about losing the batteries on their headphones and being alone out there with their own thoughts, even with concurrent activity like running. because we don't always feel comfortable in the now if we don't have something to distract us. Whether it's our work, conversation, something else. Somebody waiting at a bus stop will pull out their phone. We aren't comfortable with, I won't even want to call it nothing, but we aren't comfortable with now. And a lot of times we're just unaware of it. I mean, you've probably had the experience that you get home from work and you don't remember the journey, or maybe you were going to stop at the post office or the grocery store and you forgot, and you were just completely unaware of what was going on. It happens to me a lot. And then the blessing of the right now is that everything is in the past. So that means that that mistake I made in court is in the past. That stupid thing I said whenever is in the past. It's all behind us. So that's mindfulness. What has it got to do with meditation? Well, my answer to that is that meditation is an exercise that helps us get closer to mindfulness. The process of meditation, at least as I understand it and practice it, it's like I don't want to even call it a mental exercise because it's kind of physical too. It's a mental, physical body exercise that helps get us closer to glimpsing mindfulness. Comment in the chat from my cell phone was in the shop for a few days, so I spent a lot more time with myself than I was used to. And how was that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was all right. It took some getting used to though, because you have the cell phone there, and you think of oh, I want to look up something about this guy or that person. And then no, I don't have the cell phone. I can't do that. So what I ended up doing was I ended up doing a lot more deep breathing. Like when I took those moments, instead of trying to distract myself from what I was feeling, I got more into a breathing thing, a sort of breathing meditation thing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there you go. It just sort of came to you naturally.
Well, I had to think about it, but that's what I decided to do.
Well, hey, perfect segue, because that's kind of my whole point for today, is cultivating awareness, thinking of what we are, where we are, who we are. I think I quoted Mark Manson last week with, as a general rule, we're all the world's worst observers of ourselves. And I was thinking this morning about Mrs. King, my grade 4 teacher, and she had some kind of a saying, which I probably wrote down wrong, or I didn't write it down at all in grade 4. I think it came from Robbie Burns. It was about how we see ourselves. To see ourselves as others see us, it would from many a blunder free us. And it sounds a bit negative, actually, because it's sort of saying that if we... Well, maybe not. Maybe that's just neutral. Sometimes these things sound negative. Like if we see ourselves the way others see us, and then the moral is all about how we're bad or something like that. And that's not my point at all. I mean, in fact, far from it. Because, we see other people more clearly. You can listen to me for a few minutes or talk to someone for a few minutes and kind of, oh yeah, I know I figure that person out. But it's harder to figure ourselves out. And I think in the practice as lawyers, I guess, practice of mindfulness, practice of law, I got to get the terms mixed up. But if you've ever had a colleague come to you with some situation that they'd been agonizing over for hours or days, and you felt like you could just look at it and see it, like see the solution. And I think it's like that sometimes with other people, but when it's ourselves, we get so caught in the details and in our own minds. So, got an email after the first session last week. Somebody said, like, what is the point of this if we aren't fixing anything? And it's a great question. It's like the $20,000 question, because as lawyers, we're out for results. And I mean, time is money, literally. And I think most of us, we don't like to guarantee things to our clients. You're not going into trial and giving your client a guarantee of glorious victory. So I'm hesitant to tell you here, oh yeah, you're going to get something if you do this. I think I can safely say the benefits of meditation do not occur without practicing meditation. Say it that way to be safe. But I think we could also say that meditation is not something that would have stuck around for literally millennia if it didn't have some utility. Because, nobody was forcing people to do it for thousands of years, and yet somehow it has stuck around and it's permeated different cultures, different religions. Last week I used the movie screen analogy. And I said, like, you're in the movie theater, and like all day long we have these movies going on in our minds. And different people, we cast them in different roles, protagonist, villain, accomplice, lover. Sometimes the characters, the cast changes, but we got these roles. And we're in it. We're caught up in the movie so much we don't even realize there's a movie going on. And I said last week, take yourself out of the screen, sit in the theater, and try and just watch it. Watch that screen on your own mind when we're meditating. And I think many of us probably do this with our work anyway. Like if you've ever been working on something, you've had your head in the screen, in a document, and maybe you print it to step back from it and look at it from a distance, or you walk away from it literally, like whether you go to the water cooler or walk around the block or whatever, to step back from it and then come back to it. You see it differently. You've probably heard people say they get their best ideas in the shower or when they're walking. And I think that meditation kind of replicates that. It's a way of taking a natural exercise and putting some form on it and doing it as a discipline. And another analogy is the empty house analogy. Like you hear noises in the house at night that you wouldn't have noticed during the day. And so that's some of how you get to awareness. And the point of it, it's not to convince ourselves that we're bad or that we have problems, but the point of it is to just see ourselves a little more clearly. And what you do with what you see is going to be individual to you. What, if anything, you do with that, also going to be up to you. I've been talking for a bit. We're going to do meditation like we did last week. Anybody else have questions or comments about what I've said so far? What about the meditation itself? Like last week I suggested that people try to meditate for 5 minutes alone every day for the week. Did anybody try it, or some of it, or try it once? Any comments on that anybody wants to share?
I tried that. I found it very difficult. I didn't realize how little I just sit with it for sure.
Mm.
I tried it all week, and it's it's very difficult to not start thinking about just all kinds of things. And I'm not very good at that idea of thinking about the now, or thinking about the analogy of looking at your life as a movie and sort of like being more of an observer. I don't think we realize how frenetic is the wrong word, but how it's all the time, right? If I lay down at night, I'm not thinking about the day. I fall asleep. I'm exhausted. So I don't have that time period. I don't run at the end of the day. I don't, I'm very bad at that, obviously. I was a little surprised at how poor a job I did at trying to just carve out 5 minutes.
Well, I was about to say that if you found it difficult, you must be doing it right, because that's sort of the point. I mean, it is uncomfortable, because for 5 minutes you were putting distractions away, trying to, because your mind probably gave you an infinite number of new ones, but it really is the point. I mean, it's like picking up a weight. If you go to the gym and you go to a machine, or you pick up a barbell or something, you think, well, geez, that felt heavy. Well, yeah, that was the point.
I tried setting a timer for 5 minutes, and a couple of times I caught myself looking at my phone for the timer because I was convinced I hadn't hit start, because it felt like it clearly had to have been 5 minutes and it had been like two.
Yeah. Well, welcome to my world, because I mean, and it's like that. I was in a different group on Wednesday with some experienced meditators, and I heard someone say something I've been kind of wanting to hear for a long time, but never heard someone say out loud. And they said, "Wow, I really don't like meditating." And and I thought, like, yeah, it's kind of the point. I mean, if it was, like, if it was, really fun, we'd be, you wouldn't go to classes on it. You'd just be doing it. Like, and it's like exercise. And your mind going everywhere. The fact that you saw that, the fact that it was difficult, to me, says that, you were seeing it. Because it's not easy to, I mean, it's not hard to jump into your phone and doom scroll. That's easy. So, yeah, it's seeing it. And like I said last week, nothing miraculous ever happens to me. I went to a meditation retreat once. It lasted for a week, and we were sitting all day for a better part of the week. And there's always that person that puts their hand up and said they had this magical experience. Nothing magical ever happens to me. It's just the same stuff. But if you sat there for 5 minutes, if you didn't get up and make a sandwich, you were meditating. I think it's supposed to suck. So, and it's not that we're out to punish ourselves. It's just that it's difficult work, if I can put it that way. It's discomfort. It's like a discomfort, and it'll vary too. Like, I think some days you'll sit down and the time will go fast. Some days it'll just drag on, and you think the clock is moving backwards. There's different kinds of, like, there's a boredom with it, and over time it may transition to sort of a different kind of boredom, like, and then you still may have days when it goes back to the first kind. Anybody else have any experiences you want to share?
I'm just wondering if it's really about boredom or if it's being uncomfortable being stuck in our own heads
Hmm.
and not having a distraction, or not allowing ourselves distractions for that 5 minute period or whatever to escape from that uncomfortable feeling.
I think it's probably both.
Because I know for myself, I have to work at. If I just did what I felt like doing, I'd be like doing a lot of scrolling, but I find at least at some point every day I need to stop everything and work. I have to work at being relaxed and with the deep breathing and things like that. If I don't, I can get myself. It's not hard for me to get myself into a very hyper anxious state. If I'm not, I guess that's maybe the type of mindfulness, like being self awareness. That it's something I need to keep working at every day. Right?
I'm doing my.
Yeah. No, and
I need to do none of it CPD.
it's easier to do other things. Just like it's easier to lie down than it is to walk up a set of stairs.
Right. And that's I think it's the idea that you were getting at before. Sometimes things that are good for us, it takes discipline to do them, but they're not easy to do, right? Like going to the gym or whatever, or climbing up the stairs, or sometimes you need to identify things we need to do that are good for us, even though they're not fun to do or they're difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a cookie this morning. I didn't have any spinach. And it's sort of easier to reach for the cookies.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should give them up, but just be aware. Be aware of what we're doing. And I think that with the awareness, benefits is that over time, you may nudge the ship in the direction you want to go. And I think it helps us in life. Like, if you're talking to opposing counsel, you're in court, or talking to a client, you may get angry sometimes. And, if you're a litigator, sometimes you got to say things fast. But if you're in this reaction mode, you're probably not performing at your best. And if you're stepping back and seeing yourself, okay, I see the other lawyer is getting hot under the collar. I see that they are frustrated. I see myself. I see that I'm feeling it too. I feel that heat rising, up past my neck into my brain, or however it feels like to you. Okay, and if you can step away, like if you put yourself in a drone above the conversation and you saw it from that perspective, it might make you better at your practice. It's like when they say, when we're learning how to moot in law school, and you'd watch the replay on video if you did that, and the embarrassment of seeing how we look. But it makes us better, I think, to do that. So maybe this is like doing the same thing with our minds. Like I said, it's not about being a good meditator. It's about life. And I had a teacher who used to always ask, well, how's your practice? But what she really meant was, how's your life? Because your life is, in a sense, your practice. We can do the actual meditation. I think we did. It was 10 minutes last week. I'm gonna set the timer for 12 minutes. Maybe I shouldn't be saying the time ahead of time, but I don't know. My point is not really to trick anyone. I want people to feel comfortable with the discomfort. Should make the disclaimer, meditation is not for everybody. I've never seen somebody personally. I've never seen somebody have an adverse reaction to it. And if you're a lawyer, you're probably accustomed to stress already. But it could for some people, because you're removing distractions. If there was trauma in your background, it could become uncomfortable. And I think the point to remember is, well, you're not alone. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a counselor or therapist or any of those things, but you're not alone. You're in a safe space here with colleagues. And you can stop at any time. Like, we're not going anywhere. You're not going to go in a trance. Your feet are on the ground or near the ground. Part of you is, whether you're on a cushion or probably in a chair, your rump is still in the chair. We're still here. You're not going anywhere, and you can stop at any time. So that's the disclaimer. In coming to meditation, I forget sometimes, but shake it out, because if you've been working all day, you may be carrying more tension than you realize. So you can shake it out as you sit down. Something I often do first is I take my shoes off. You don't have to take your shoes off to meditate. It's not really about your feet. But I take them off sort of symbolically, because it's like you're entering another space. And we're not in a monastery, so we're not going to go and sit in a meditation room or a shrine room. It's like in judo, you go into the, what do they call it, the dawn, or is it, the space. You bow when you're entering it. We don't have that kind of a space here. We're in our offices. So for me, like, putting my phone physically away from my body, taking my shoes off, I might take my glasses off, like that sort of thing is like a way of me creating my own boundary with the rest of the world when I come to meditation. And then sit upright but not uptight. Posture is not magical, but it's about a blend of comfort and diligence. We're sort of blending gentleness and precision, because if you were in a hammock, you'd probably just be sleeping. And at the same time, if you were, standing really rigid, you'd probably just be creating some discomfort you don't need. I will start the timer. And Terry, I do the same thing as you. I sometimes look at it to see if if it's really moving, because it seems like time is moving backwards. I think you can hear the bell. So we're just going to sit reasonably still. Sit reasonably symmetrical. And just watch what moves. Your eyes are open, your ears are open. There's noises going on where you are, you're going to hear them. If there's noises in my background here, you'll hear those too. But it's not about sensory deprivation, it's about being aware of what is. So just observe, just receive. Receive whatever your senses are giving you. Could be the feeling of the cushion, the seat, or the floor. You may feel that. It's there all day, but you probably don't notice it most of the time. Could be sounds in the background. And most importantly, your mind. Non-stop chatter in your mind. That's okay. Don't try to stop it. There's nothing to fix. There's nothing to correct. Just observe it. And when you realize that you're down a rabbit hole, just observe that. Just observe your own reaction to observing. It's like if you were seeing yourself from that drone. Seeing what's projected in your own mind. Just see it. You don't have to do a thing with it. Just see it. I will stop talking. I will watch the time. We'll sit in silence. And just continue to sit still. Just receive. And if something hurts or itches, it's okay to move. Just be aware you're doing it. And just receive. Okay, well, that was 12 minutes. Thank you for your practice. And to stop meditating, we simply stop. We simply drop the technique, if I can call it that. Remember that bell's a little bit loud, being next to the microphone. Any comments, reflections, or threats that anyone wants to share?
It feels different if you're doing it if other people are doing it at the same time, and it feels different if you think people can see you, right? When I was doing it for the week, nobody else could see me. Well, my husband could see me sometimes doing it, and I was trying. In fact, I wonder if that's a difference between men and women, or if it's different, just a difference in my marriage. Because when I was trying to do it and I was talking to my husband about it, he's like, "That sounds easy. I think about nothing all the time."
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Interesting perspective on it. There is a value, I think, in sitting together. I'm not sure I can explain why, but it's just I've heard there's a value to it. I feel like there is. Like somehow it's magnified when we sit together. Yet it is also an individual sport. You can still do it at home, and although I suppose at any given time there's other people, probably thousands of people or millions of people around the world doing the same thing. And I don't know, do we ever really think about nothing? Really? Like, I think we might not have a defined agenda, but I feel like there's always something going on in there. I mean, I know in those 12 minutes I was thinking about whether it's got to think about getting a bicycle tuned up. I was thinking about lunch, you know, and I think the point is not to beat yourself up over whatever you're thinking about, because I've heard that the worst, the destructive kind of, like, there's stress, which is all of our lives. Sorry, I'm not going through an earthquake here. There's a cat rubbing against the screen here. Stress is present every moment of our lives, and it's not necessarily harmful, but I've heard that when we start to stress about stress, that kind of stress is negative. And so there's like this spin cycle that can happen where we start to beat ourselves up for something, and then we beat ourselves up for beating ourselves up. Like we get mad at ourselves for being judgmental and negative. And, well, you know what? If you want to break that cycle, being aware of it is the first step, because you can't stop or alter something if you can't see it. And I think the fact that our minds go places is a good thing, because if they didn't, we'd probably be dead. And most of us comes, like, I think, preloaded with anxiety and other things, and it's probably because we're descended from people who thought a lot, because people that cave people that didn't think a lot probably or that didn't have anxiety probably walked up to saber-toothed tigers or into fires or something, or off cliffs. So I think evolution may have predestined us to be thinking all the time about stuff. Just be aware of it. I don't know if my... Yeah, Rebecca.
Oh, well, I just wanted to say about the echo of the bell. I thought that was really interesting, because you hear the bell, and
Yeah.
then you hear the echo of the bell. And to me, when I'm sitting here thinking, it's like that, like I'm having the echoes of various things going. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think I waited for the echo to fade away before I opened my mouth. I try to do that because it's part of it, you know. And yet, I think it's kind of symbolic because in a lot of life, those echoes are there, but we don't pick them up. You know, we don't let things sink in. And yeah, we don't always have, you know, if you're driving or something, you may have to do things pretty quickly. It is almost like an automaton state, but or automatic reactions or reflexes. So this is our opportunity to do something that's different. Like I would never say meditate while driving. They are not compatible activities. And so this is an opportunity to do something different. I do want to be mindful of the time. Rebecca, did you want to turn the recording off just to see if anybody else had any other questions? I meant to say that earlier.
So I can do that. It'll just take me a second.